right then. Hello again, adventurers, and welcome to another exciting episode of D&D Deep Dive, the show where we dive deep into classes, subclasses, and other features of D&D 5th edition so that you can get the most out of the choices you make. Today, it's finally happening. I am getting the last base class of the D&D 5th edition done with. Going forward, it will be either new classes or new subclasses, but I will have covered all the bases. So that means today we're covering the wizard. Yes, wizards have been around since the original D&D. This is pre-first edition. The original little pamphlet that you copied and gave to your friends, and that's how it got spread. But back then, I believe it was called a magic user instead of a wizard. And throughout the years, they have changed simply from the only character that could use arcane magic to the common thought of what a wizard is now is a very scholared individual who has studied magic and because of that has expert control over it. They've added more things, like in second edition they added specialist wizards, where you would be able to cast more spells, or I think it was either you cast more spells per day, but you had a school of magic that you specialized in where you were really good at casting those, and then the opposing school of magic, you could never learn those spells. You could choose to be a specialized wizard or just a standard wizard who wouldn't get any of the benefits, but also wouldn't get any of the drawbacks. And then it kept going. But from about like the third edition, and really this is the second edition and first edition really weren't all that different. Wizards have been wizards. Like they have a spell book. They cast a number of spells that they can cast are limited to a daily amount, and they learn new spells. Like they're magic users. For 5th edition, I think has modified them a little bit to be more interesting to play at low levels and just more fun to play. And they did that by incorporating some of the dreaded 4th edition rules. This is specifically things like at-will spells and abilities from 4th editions turned into cantrips in 5th edition. If you've never played an earlier edition of D&D, cantrips, which used to be listed as just 0-level spells, had a daily limit as well, so even your cantrips you would run out of. And as you got to higher levels, the cantrips became basically worthless, with a few minor utility ones this is still getting some use. In 5th edition, all of that is changed, because cantrips you can now use as many times as you want. They get more powerful as you level up. Another thing that they took from 4th edition. Overall, the wizard itself has really become an interesting class. They're no longer entirely defined by the fact that, well, I used magic, because there's quite a few classes that use magic. Now, their defining features are more about the fact that they are expert magic users. They don't do it intuitively, where they just kind of makes this stuff happen. They don't have to pay for it like a warlock does. These are the people that have been studying magic their entire lives, and because of that, they are generally the most powerful spellcasters in the game. They have access to, I believe, more spells than any other class. But because of their ability to copy spells into their spell books, they will actually have access to more spells than any other arcane class, as long as they can find ways to copy them down. So let's dive into the class itself, though. Because unlike other ones, like the history of the wizard is, they've been wizards for, 40 years, maybe 50. Let's see if it started in the mid 70s, 80s, and the 90s. Yeah, about 40, 50 years now. So impressive. Let's look at what they get. The absolute first thing that wizards get is spellcasting for first level. It's literally the first thing that's listed after you get your starting equipment and everything, and that's because that's a big deal to wizards. Their defining feature is, like I said, they are expert spellcasters, and it shows right from the beginning. First things first. At first level, you learn 3 cantrips. Most other classes, you generally only get to 2, if I remember correctly. Before I say the wrong thing, I'm actually going to look. No, sorcerers get 4. I am totally... Yeah, warlocks get to 2. That's what I was thinking of. And then... Yeah, clerics get the 3 as well. So, on par with other classes as far as cantrips are concerned. They do learn more cantrips as they get higher levels, starting with only the 3. But by the time they hit to the 10th level, they have 5. So, grand total, you have 5 cantrips that you know as a wizard. Now, the unique thing about cantrips that somewhat work to a wizard's not to a wizard's benefit, to their detriment, is cantrips are not spells that you could keep in your spell book. Cantrips are spells that you know so well you have them memorized. So cantrips are the only spells that wizards can't learn every single one of them. Everything else in their spell book, they can. And that's why the very next thing you get is your spell book. This is a defining feature of wizards. Now, there are abilities that give things like warlocks can actually get a version of a spell book if they take a certain pact gift. And there is a feat you can take that we've talked about before, where you can get a ritual book and basically copy down any spells that have the ritual modifier on them. But wizards themselves are the only ones that get their own spell book right from first level. Another thing that's kind of unique is wizards start off with 6 first level spells known, which is a lot. And again, fits into the idea that wizards are these very well studied and very well prepared kind of class. When you're playing a wizard, the more you know about what you're getting into, the better. 100% of the time, it is in your best interest to know what you're going to go into, to do research, to spy and get as much information as you can before you have to actually go there, because wizards will always have a lot more spells available to them than they can take in a single day, and knowing what you're going to go into can help you pick the spells that you prepare every morning. As when you will wake up from a long rest, you prepare a number of spells for the day. Those are the only spells that you can cast for that day. You can prepare a number of spells equal to your intelligence modifier plus your wizard level. So a max level wizard, level 20, generally going to have an intelligence of 20 as well, because intelligence is the only stat you really need to play a wizard. That would mean you can prepare 25 spells a day. So wizards have a ton of spells at their disposal, and every level they can prepare more and more and just become that much more powerful and more useful in more situations. So spellcasting ability, they're into intelligence based as spellcasters, so we know that. They have the ritual caster built into them, so they don't need the feat or anything. They can cast rituals, which basically just means you add 10 minutes to the casting time, and you can cast it for free. Now, again, because wizards have to prepare spells to be able to cast them, that includes rituals. If you want to be able to cast a ritual spell later in the day, it does have to be one of your prepared spells. So that can be a somewhat limiting factor compared to like sorcerers. If they got the ritual caster ability, they just know all their spells, so they always have it prepared. Wizards don't. So again, you have choices to make. Learning spells, every time you gain a wizard level, you learn 2 spells from the wizard spell list for free. They have to be spells of which you have they have to be a level which you have spell slots for. So if you only have first and second levels spell slots, you can't learn Fireball, the 3rd level spell. You know, it's the same way that works for every one else. However, again, going back to the spell book, wizards have the ability, if they find another wizard's spell book, if they find spell scrolls, they can actually copy those spells into their spell book. The issue being is it costs money to do that. For each level of the spell, it takes 2 hours and costs 50 gold pieces. The cost represents the material components you expend as you experiment with the spell to master it. And then once you spent the time and money, you can prepare it just like any other spell. So basically, part of copying the spell into your book is sitting there and practicing the spell and learning the ins and outs of how the spell works. Because in order for you to be able to cast it without having a scroll to cast it from, you need to know it really well, and that's why it costs money. That also means that things like a 4th level spell takes 8 hours to copy into your book and cost you 200 gold pieces. And spell levels go all the way up to the 9th level. So if you're copying a 9th level spell, which would be incredibly rare and would probably only happen if you met another very high level wizard and you basically trade spell books, which is the thing that happens a lot for D&D players. I'm not sure as much in the world how much that would happen, but for organized play and things like that, I do know a lot of players who go, hey, I've got a wizard. You've got a wizard? Let's look at our spell lists and let's see what we can copy from each other. So depending on the world you're playing in, that might be a very common thing for wizards to do. Or wizards could be very secretive about their magic, so as not to give someone that could be a potential enemy the ability to know everything that they know. Yeah. The other thing is, if you lose your spell book, you can't prepare new spells. I'm just reading it really quickly here, if you guys are wondering. So the thing with your spell book, if you lose it, any spells that you don't actually have prepared are gone. You can get a new spell book and then basically copy all the spells you have prepared into this spell book, but any spells you don't have prepared are just gone, and you have to go through the process of relearning the spells in order to have access to them. So because of that, your spell book is just super important, to the point where, and it even says this in the player's handbook, a lot of wizards keep a backup spell book. When you're copying a spell from one book to the other, it's actually cheaper and easier for you. It's only 1 hour and 10 gold piece for each level of this copied spell, and that's basically paying for the magic inks and everything you need to transcribe it, because you already know this is a spell. But it's incredibly common lore-wise for wizards to have a backup spell book that they keep somewhere safe when they're out adventuring. So if the worst were to happen, their spell book burnt up or was stolen, they can just go get their other spell book, and they haven't lost all of that knowledge. For you DMs out there, this is a really cool and interesting way to motivate a wizard if you feel like pissing them off. Have their spell book get stolen, and look how differently they now have to play their wizard. Again, any spells you have already prepared, you can just keep those spells. You don't have to prepare them if you don't want to. So without this spell book, they've basically just limited the number of spells that they know to the ones that are prepared. And just watch how differently the class plays when a defining feature of the class is taken from them. And it can really help add some spice and a nuance to the game when playing a wizard can get somewhat stale if you're not paying too close attention to it. So yes, spell books, super important. Always keep a spare in case the worst happens. And DMs, if you have a wizard in your party and they're not keeping a backup spell book, make them lose it for a little bit, just to see what happens, because it adds a lot of chaos to the group. Let me tell you that. The other defining feature of the wizard is a thing called Arcane Recovery. This is an ability unique to wizards. However, I believe Circle of the Moon druids get something somewhat similar. But Arcane Recovery is basically once per day, when you finish a short rest, you can choose to recover expended spell slots. The spell slots can have a combined level that is equal to or less than half your wizard level, rounded up, and none of the slots can be higher than 6th level. So what that means, let's say you are a fifth level wizard. You've just gotten access to the third level spells, and you've used, let's say, two first, to two second, and a third level, and you guys go down to take a short rest. Because you're level 5, half of half of 5 is 2.5. Round that up to 3. You can recover up to 3 levels of spells. So either you can recover 2 first level spells and then just throw away the last level because you can't. You could do a first and a second level spell because those add up to 3, or you could recover a single third level spell slot. This, again, feeds into that idea that wizards are master spellcasters. Not only do they have access to more spells than most other classes, and not only do they have the ability to learn significantly more spells than other classes because they can copy them, they can restore their own spell slots so they can continue to be casting spells constantly, because that's what it is to be a wizard, is just using spells constantly. It's one of the reasons I like that cantrips get more powerful as you level up, and you can cast them as many times as you want, because if you are going to be playing a wizard, you kind of want to feel like one. Like in earlier editions, a lot of times wizards would just, in trash fights, wizards would just sit in the back with maybe a sling, and that's all they would do, is they'd go sling, sling, because they only had 3 or 4 spells a day. And if you got into 3 combats in a day, which was not impossible at all, they could easily go through all their spells in the first combat and be useless for the rest. So now, even if they do burn all their high level spells, they still have their cantrips so that they can always feel magical. They can always be doing magic stuff, because that's what wizards are. So yeah, Arcane Recovery, this is super cool. When we get to second level, now again, I've said this many times before, in 5th edition, the design philosophy is introduce the things that define the class and make it unique compared to any other class in the first 2 levels. And that's what they did to do here. They give you your spell book and Arcane Recovery right at first level, and then Arcane Tradition, which is your subclass, is your second level ability. And that will massively change how you play the character. In the player's handbook, there are 8 things from my phone. There are 8 arcane traditions, one for each school of magic that there are. The schools are Abjuration, Conjuration, Divination, Enchantment, Evocation, Illusion, Necromancy, and Transmutation. Every spell for every class in the game falls into one of those schools. And because, again, wizards are very, very schooled and educated masters of magic, they will specialize in a certain type of spell that they know better than anyone else, and that knowledge lets them use those spells in ways that no one else can, and they get really cool. So you choose that right at second level, and then as far as the rest of the base class of wizard, you get your ability score improvements every 4 levels, basically, just like every other class. And then you don't get another class feature until level 18. And then, again, at level 20. And me personally, I think the names of these should be flipped, and I'll explain that as I explain them. Or after I explain both of them. Spell Mastery is what you get at 18th level. Basically what happens is you choose a first level wizard spell and a second level wizard spell that are in your spell book. You can cast those spells at their lowest level without expending a spell slot when you have them prepared. If you want to cast either spell at a higher level, you must still expend a spell slot. And then by spending 8 hours in study, you can exchange one or both of the spells you chose for different spells of the same levels. What this means is you get a first level spell and a second level spell that are cantrips for you now. You can cast them as many times as you want at first or at the second level for these spells. And you never run out of them. The only little limitation is you have to prepare them every morning. So that means at 18th level with 20 intelligence, you have 23 spells you can prepare. To use this spell mastery, 2 of those prepared spells have to be your spell mastery ones. This is massively useful. I'm not sure if I've talked about this before, but there is a very, very large difference between second level and the third level spells. First and second level spells are useful and can do a lot of great things, but the third level spells are what start changing the game. And it's one of the reasons that once you hit level 5 in any spellcast, full spellcasting class, things change rather massively. That's why tier 2 adventures start at level 5. It's because you get access to the third level spells. So the fact that wizards can now cast one first level spell and one second level spell at will is not going to massively overbalance the party, but it does make them, again, as we've talked about before, masters of magic. They're so good they can cast first level spells as if they were cantrips. And more likely than not, you may actually just replace your cantrip usage with these spells. Things like Magic Missile is actually a remarkably good one to have. Because at higher levels, Magic Missile can be really, really useful because you just do so many of them. You cast the 3 magic missiles at level 1, and then... Excuse me, I apologize. You can cast the 3 magic missiles at level 1, and then for every level above 1, you cast an additional magic missile. So by the time you get to level 9, you are actually casting... what is it, 11? I think Magic Missile is 11 or 12. Math is hard. And they always hit. There's no attack roll. They just hit. They do force damage, which almost no creature has resistance to. They're just massively useful, especially if you are dealing with enemies as spellcasters, because every hit is another concentration check, which is the big limiting factor of Magic in 5th edition. And so having spell mastery over Magic Missile can be crazy useful because every turn you're launching the 3 guaranteed to hit the damage against anyone you want to. You don't even need a line of sight a lot of the times because they can curve around corners and stuff like that. So it's just massively useful. Now, going up to level 20, you get what's called signature spells. When you reach the 20th level, you gain mastery over 2 powerful spells and can cast them with a little effort. Choose 2 third level wizard spells in your spellbook as your signature spells. You always have these spells prepared, and they don't count against the number of spells you have prepared. And you can cast each of them once at the 3rd level without expending a spell slot. When you do so, you can't do so again until you finish a short or long rest. And then if you want to cast them at higher levels, you still have to suspend a spell slot. Now remember what I said. Third level spells change the game. Signature spells, you now have two the third level spells that you always have prepared, and you can cast for free once a day. That can be massive. Now I mentioned before, I think spell mastery and signature spells, just the names should be flipped. Because signature spells, again, imply kind of like a calling card. Like, every time this wizard comes out, they cast this particular spell. And it's become their signature spell. It's a spell that they're known for. Whereas the spell mastery, they're just really, really good at casting spells. So in my mind, signature spells should be the 18th level ones, simply because those are the spells that they can always cast at the drop of a hat. They never need to use this as a spell slot. They're just always casting them. Whereas spell mastery, you have these two spells that you are such a master of that once per day you can just cast them for free. It's a semantic thing, but it feels better to me. And that's the wizard. Literally, it is the entirety of the class features are spellcasting, which includes your spell book, arcane recovery, your tradition, and then spell mastery and signature spells. That's all you get from the base class. So much of the class is going to be shaped by the spells that you choose and the spells that you find. However, like I said before, the arcane traditions will change how your character plays in significant ways. It's not just you're really good at these spells. You can cast spells in your chosen school in ways that no other subclass can, even if they have that spell. So let's dive into the actual schools. The first arcane tradition is the school of Abjuration. Abjuration spells are buffs, would be the best nomenclature that most people would know. They do things, they list them here. Magic that blocks, banishes, or protects. Abjuration spells, for the most part, are going to be everything from, to give you an example, things like Blade Ward is an Abjuration cantrip. Mage Armor is a first level Abjuration spell. Sanctuary, Shield, those are Abjuration spells. As you get to higher levels, things like Remove Curse, Aura of Life, which isn't a wizard spell. It's actually a paladin and a couple subclasses, but Banishment is another Abjuration spells that a lot of people would kind of go, well, wait a minute, because it banishes people and things. Even going up to things like Circle of Power, Planar Binding, things like that. Those are all Abjuration spells. Now, the things that you get in every single school, the first thing you're going to get is School of Magic Savant. So in this case, Abjuration Savant. And that basically means the gold and time you must suspend to copy an Abjuration spell into your spellbook is halved. So you already are incentivized to learn more Abjuration spells because they're easier and cheaper to put into your book. When you're creating your replacement book, or if you have to resubscribe them for any reason, you can do it faster and cheaper. So there's always a benefit for you to learn schools, spells of the school that you specialize in. Wow, something in my eye. That wasn't fun. The next thing you get at this second level is what I think is the coolest part of the Abjuration wizard, and actually turns them kind of into a wizard tank, is what's called the Arcane Ward. When you cast an Abjuration spell of first level or higher, you can simultaneously use a strand of the spell's magic to create a magical ward on your self that lasts until you finish a long rest. The ward has a hit point maximum equal to twice your wizard level plus your intelligence modifier. Whenever you take damage, the ward takes the damage instead, and if this damage reduces the ward to 0 hit points, you take any remaining damage. Now, at first, it sounds a little bit overpowered because you could just cast a first level spell and get this massive shield. Well, it doesn't quite work that way. While the ward has 0 hit points, it can absorb damage, but the magic still remains. Whenever you cast an Abjuration spell of first level or higher, the ward regains a number of hit points equal to twice the level of this spell. And once you could create the ward, you can't create it again until you finish a long rest. And this is where it gets a little bit confusing. But from what I'm reading here, the way that the Arcane ward works is the first time in your day you cast an Abjuration spell for first level of higher, you create the ward and it's got full hit points. For the rest of the day, you can replenish the hit points of the ward by casting leveled Abjuration spells, and for every level, like a first level spell will add 2 hit points to it. A 4th level spell will add 8 hit points to it, and so on and so forth. So when you could combine this with things like Arcane Recovery, it's an incredibly useful thing because, first of all, again, concentration is an important thing for a wizard. And if your Arcane Ward is absorbing all the damage, you're not making concentration checks. If it's absorbing only some of the damage, it could knock the concentration check into a lower DC. Concentration checks, again, are DC 10 or half the damage done to you in a single attack, rounded down. So if you've got an attack that does the 30 damage to you, that's a DC 15 concentration check. However, if your Arcane Ward absorbs 15 of that, and it brings it down to 20, DC 10. So the Arcane Ward can be incredibly useful, and gets even more useful as you level up, as we'll see with the 6th level, and getting projected ward. Starting at the 6th level, when a creature that you can see within the 30 feet of you takes damage, you can use your reaction to cause your Arcane Ward to absorb the damage. If this damage reduces the ward to 0 hit points, the warded creature takes any remaining damage. So now not only can you protect yourself, you can protect other people, which again can be incredibly useful for anyone concentrating on something. It can be incredibly useful anytime someone's at really low hit points. You can just go, oh, Arcane Ward. And the nice thing about this is it doesn't say anything about you have to choose to use the ward before the damage is rolled. No, it says whenever they take damage, so you can hear, oh, you're going to take the 30 damage from this. And the guy's like, crap, well, that's going to make me unconscious. Projected ward. No, you're fine. You have to keep going. Let's continue. Massively useful. 10th level, they get improved Abjuration. When you cast an Abjuration spell that requires you to make an ability check as part of the casting of that spell, as in Counterspell and Dispel Magic, you add your proficiency bonus to that ability check. So what does this mean? First of all, Counterspell is an Abjuration spell. One of the most useful spells in the game for fighting other spellcasters will restore your Arcane Ward. It's at the 3rd level spell, and you can get cast at higher levels. The reason you can get cast at higher levels is at the 3rd level, if you cast Counterspell, any 3rd level or lower spell automatically fails. If it's higher than 3rd level, you have to roll your I believe it's just let's look at the actual spell. I have it right here. If it's casting a 4th level higher, make an ability check using your spell casting ability. So you would make an intelligence check for this. With improved abjuration, you make intelligence plus your proficiency bonus, which is a big deal and makes it that much easier to be able to counter the spell. The DC for countering any spell is 10 plus the spell's level. So a 6th level spell would require a DC of 16. So you have to roll higher than a 16, which with just your intelligence modifier, assuming it's a 20, that means you have to roll an 11 or higher to counter that. When you add your proficiency bonus, you can now roll single digits and still counter pretty high level spells. Dispel magic is kind of the same way. The reason you would cast counter spell at higher levels is if you cast counter spell at 4th level, any 4th level or lower spell automatically fails, and it goes up and up and up and up and up. If the spell is higher at all, so you cast counter spell at 4th level, they cast a 5th level spell, it's the same check you would make if it were if you cast counter spell at the 3rd level. So that kind of gives you a choice of, okay, how bad do I think this is going to be? How well do I know my spells? It really kind of puts the player into the shoes of the wizard, because their knowledge of magic is going to be as useful as their character's knowledge of magic. So anyway, yes, improved abjuration just makes it that much easier to win that stuff. And finally, at 14th level, you get spell resistance. You advantage on saving throws against the spells, and you have resistance against the damage of spells. Meaning, if you fail, if you make your saving throw for the damage, you generally will take half damage. And because you have resistance to the damage of any spells, you will take half of half, or basically quarter the damage for any attack. Meaning, Abjuration wizards are kind of beefy wizards, to be blunt. And it's much smarter to take them out using pointy things rather than sparkly magic things. School of Conjuration. This is actually one of my favorites, because I love the idea of a summoner. A magic user that doesn't really fight for themselves. What they do is they conjure beings and have those beings fight for them. Conjuration is anytime you create something out of nothing, which does apply to like summon elemental or conjure elemental, anything that has the word conjure in it. Those are all conjuration spells. But there are other things like create bonfire. Mage Hand is a conjuration spell. Produce flame, because you're creating the flame out of nothing. Acid splash. These are all cantrips. You're creating acid and then splashing it on someone. Those are all conjuration spells. As you get to higher things like Tensor's floating disc. Misty Step is actually a conjuration spell, because you're actually conjuring yourself in a different location. And then higher level for things like Thunder Step is a conjuration, because it's basically Misty Step with an explosion. Faithful Hound, which is also Mordenkainen's Faithful Hound. Things like Conjure Volley, which is a ranger spell, is a conjuration spell, because you're multiplying the weapons that you're using. Yes, just like Abjuration, you have Conjuration Savant, and then you get Minor Conjuration. Starting at the second level, when you select this school, you can use your action to conjure up an inanimate object in your hand or on the ground in an unoccupied space that you can see within 10 feet of you. This object can be no larger than the 3 feet on a side and weigh no more than 10 pounds, and its form must be that of a non-magical object that you have seen. The object is visibly magical, radiating a dim light out to 5 feet. The object disappears in an hour when you use this feature again, or if it takes or deals any damage. This is super cool because basically a conjurer never is never without the right tool for the occasion. You need to break into a chest. Oh, look, I've got a crowbar here. Dang it, you forgot to swipe that key off of the magistrate. Don't worry, poof, I have the key right here. The only limitations is they can't take or deal damage because they poof into nothingness. Because it does say if it deals any damage, it does mean you get one swing with the thing before it goes and disappears. But yeah, it's massively useful because now the conjurer basically becomes your Swiss Army knife. Mundane objects, a party with a conjurer basically never needs to take them because there's no limitation as to how often you can use this. You just get to use it. And so it's crazy useful. At 6th level, you get another thing that I absolutely adore. Excuse me. That is... I've got something in my throat and it's killing me. That is benign transposition. Starting at the 6th level, you can use your action to teleport up to 30 feet to an unoccupied space that you can see. Alternatively, you can choose a space within range that is occupied by a smaller medium creature. If that creature is willing, you both teleport, swapping places. And once you use this feature, you got to finish a long rest or cast a conjuration spell of 1st level or higher to be able to use it again. So this is teleportation, which is always useful. Or switching places with someone, which can be even more useful. I always think about this is a situation I was in a Adventures League game where we had these demons that were I think they were gargoyles, were perched on the roof and they kept diving down and attacking us, and there was this single rope with a beam balanced on it and 2 glyphs on either side, and on the other side was this kind of portcullis thing that if you could activate both glyphs by touching them at the same time, or basically within a turn, the portcullis would rise, and all you had to do was walk across this tightrope to get to the other side and get away from these damn gargoyles. I was playing a Shadow Monk, my Shadow Monk Aether, and at the level we were at, I could run on walls. So what I decided to do was I was going to run along one wall to touch the beneath the balance beam was lava. So it was like a 40-foot drop into lava. So what I did is I ran to one wall to touched it, was supposed to bamf over to the other wall because Shadow Monks can shadow step, touch it, that would open the thing up, and then I'd suspend the rest of my movement getting in. They had a ward that didn't allow you to teleport, which could cause issues and upset me because the DM didn't actually run the ward correctly, but whatever. Anyway, the ability to teleport is massively useful, especially if it's only limited by sight. You can see through bars. So if you're ever locked in a cage somewhere, you just benign to transposition out of it. Or if you have an ally that is trapped, you can benign to transposition, flip each other out, cast a first level conjuration spell, and then bloop, bamf yourself out. It's incredibly useful. It gets you out of a lot of situations that you don't want to be in, like good grapples and the things like that. Super useful. Focused conjuration is what you get at the 10th level. Basically, beginning at the 10th level, while you're concentrating on a conjuration spell, your concentration can't be broken as a result of taking the damage. Let me say that again for those in the back. You can't lose concentration because of the damage. What have I said over countless D&D deep dives? The best thing you can do when fighting a wizard is force them to make concentration checks, but because their most powerful spells are going to be concentration. With a conjurer, you gotta find it a different way. Now, that does mean things like paralysis, being incapacitated in any way, which includes being stunned, can make you to drop concentration. But paralyzing and stunning and the things like that are a heck of a lot harder than just making them make concentration checks. And depending on what you have conjured, again, conjuration spells might be produce flame. Conjuration spells also might be conjure elemental, where you have this fire elemental running around just destroying people and doing crazy amounts of damage. Again, adding to the action economy of your side by giving you an additional person. And it just gets better as you get to higher levels. Yeah. Anyway, Conjurations is super cool. And then starting at 14th level, any creature that you summon or create with a Conjuration spell has 30 to temporary hit points. So you do become a master summoner if you go to the School of Conjuration. And you can do a lot of really, really cool things as a part of it. And you get your first, like, summoning extra creatures spells. I mean, technically, right at the first level, you have Unseen as a Servant, despite the fact they can't attack. But right at the second level, you get the Dust Devil, which is a conjuration spell where you summon a Dust Devil, which doesn't have extra attacks or anything like that, but it is a construct that you get to keep there. And then you have the things like Flaming Sphere right at second level, where you do get this thing that you can move around and just destroy things, or anyway, and then the third level is when you start getting the things like the conjure spells and stuff like that. Anyway, so yeah, that's the School of Conjuration. That is 2. We got 6 more. We're pushing over for 50 minutes, so this is where I'm going to end this one. The very next D&D deep dive that I put out is going to be the other 6 schools. So this will be the end of the base classes. I hope you guys are excited. As always, if you enjoyed the video, please hit the like. Go ahead and share it with all your friends. If you want to see more stuff like this, please hit the subscribe button. That helps me to be able to reach more people, and it helps you to be able to make sure that you're always getting my stuff. Also, feel free to hit the notification bell because that will ensure that when YouTube doesn't want to share my stuff, as it is apt to do, you have a better chance of getting it. In the comments below, what are you thinking about Wizards in 5th edition? Have you played a 5th edition Wizard before? Or Wizards in earlier editions? Have you avoided Wizards because you're like, it really just doesn't seem that fun to be basically an arcane canon? And now that you're hearing some of the cool stuff you can do, maybe starting to think of trying out a Wizard. Yeah, let me know in the comments down below. Anyway, that's all for me today, and I will see you guys next time, all right? Bye-bye.